Mordenkainen's popularity has been on the rise thanks to Vecna Eve of Ruin. GameMasters here, and my first introduction to this wizard was way back in WG5 Advanced Dungeons & Dragons module, Mordenkainen's Fantastic Adventure. And what was really cool about this module was actually... Hold that thought a moment. The world of Greyhawk was a world that Gary Gygax had created back before D&D was D&D. Mordenkainen was one of his characters, one that he actually played as. And this module, this WG5, took place in Greyhawk. But the cool thing about this module was that you could actually play as Mordenkainen, or your own character if you wanted. But included in this were 4 pre-made characters, with Mordenkainen being the main one. The other 3 were Urag, which was a level 9 fighter, Rigby, a level 9 cleric, and Bigby, a level 10 magic user, specifically a necromancer. While this video isn't exactly about the module itself, I am going to cover what it has to say about Mordenkainen, but we are also going to examine him as he has appeared through the years. Mordenkainen is listed here as being a level 12 wizard, and because this took place back in the AD&D days, I do need to point out that his stat block is going to look very different, wildly different actually, from how 5th edition is presented. And before we dive too deep into Mordenkainen, I want to take a look at his physical presentation. Here he is depicted as having a full head of hair. He appears to be middle-aged man, and is also described as his hair being black and cropped, his beard black with silver streaks and well waxed. Nice guy. This module came out in 1984, but again, remember that Gygax had this image of him in mind well over a decade prior. But in this 1984 module was when I got a good first look at what Mordenkainen was visually depicted as. I'm going to go off on a slight tangent here, but we'll return back to the module in a moment. In Dragon Magazine, issue 183, that came out in 1992, Ed Greenwood crafted up a neat little section that would later be called The Wizards 3, in which Elminster and Mordenkainen would gather at his house here on Earth, at Ed Greenwood's house, and they would exchange news as they saw things happening in their respective worlds. And afterwards, we'd get some new spells and magic items to add into our games. But the reason I bring this issue of Dragon Magazine up is for the visual. We can see here that Mordenkainen is visually represented pretty much the same way he was back in the module from 1984. Another issue I want to point out, also in the Wizards 3 column, this time from issue 246 from April of 1998, a good 6 years later from when the first Wizards 3 depiction came out, we again can see that he has a full head of hair. And you can kind of see where I'm going with this. However, by Dragon Magazine issue 344 from June of 2006, we can see very visually different looking Mordenkainen, this one appearing to look more like Ming the Merciless from Flash Gordon. So what happened? Well, in a nutshell, Mordenkainen discovered the fine art of shaving one's head bald. At one point, he even found himself going after Strahd in Ravenloft, only to discover that Strahd was more powerful than he had thought, and he lost everything he had, even his memory. But magic was still latent within him, but with having no memory, but the ability to still cast magic of sorts, he was on the brink of madness, to the point where even the locals in Barovia referred to him as the Mad Mage of Mount Baratok. Not to be confused with the Mad Mage Halaster Blackcloak, but in this adventure, this time, it's the 5th edition. He again has a full head of hair, of course. By the time we see him in Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse, he's back to his shiny bald head. Now, I agree, that was a bit of a tangent, all just to sum up that he likes to shave his head. And that is not due to some otherworldly magical force that causes his follicles to not grow hair. And I thought that it was just an interesting journey to see how he had been presented throughout the years, because I really like putting things into context, especially when we have access to how something was historically presented. But now, back to our WG5 module, because he has some fun things going on here. And again, remember, the stat blocks from Advanced Dungeons & Dragons days are quite a bit different than those from 5th edition days. But we can see that Mordenkainen was a wizard of level 12. He had an armor class of 1, and this is one of those that's wildly different. Armor class back in the AD&D days was best when it was lower, going all the way down to a -10. He has 52 hit points, could make 2 attacks. One was of and he is of neutral alignment and has an affinity towards the deity of Bakab. Mordenkainen has a strength of 10, an intelligence of 18, wisdom was 15, dexterity is 17, constitution was 17, and charisma was 18. Before we jump into all of his possessions, I first want to thank these magical supporters. Their contributions to the channel have made it so that I didn't need to take on a sponsored ad for this specific video. And we always skip all of those ads anyway, don't we? If you'd like to see how you could become a Patreon or YouTube member to support the cause, I'll leave links down in the description. Of course, hitting that subscribe button and thumbs up button, that goes a long way as well. For gear, Mordenkainen wears normal robes, carries a dagger +1, and bracers of defense with an armor class of 4. He has a side pouch that he carries a wand of fear, a scroll of the Ifrit, and a silver key of portals inside of. He also has a portable hole in which he carries a crystal ball and a flying carpet, as well as pouches to carry various components for his spells. Speaking of spells, he knows all wizard spells from levels 1 to level 6. The flying carpet can hold up to 4 people while flying. The scroll of the Ifrit is made of a lesser demon's hide, and just being in possession of it, it acts like a ring of fire resistance. But if you read the runes from it, an Ifrit will appear and assist you for 2 to 5 hours. Once that scroll has been used, it becomes useless. The silver key of portals is a minor artifact, and when you touch it to any portal, magical or otherwise, it will open that portal. This key can be used to open up to 4 portals per day, which is perfect for this adventure because it takes place within Mara Castle, and rumors abound that it has some unopenable doors. While there is some great history found in this module, the focus was to look at Mordenkainen. While the adventure itself sees some wild and fun things taking place, and it certainly has its fair share of awesome treasure, as well as traps and dangers. Take the socks, for example. Don't put those on. And I don't want to give away any spoilers for this adventure because I intend to do a video going over it in the very near future. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell so that you don't miss that. My aim and goal was to showcase Mordenkainen so that we all had a bit more context to see how he appears in Vecna Eve of Ruin. To that end, I want to jump a bit into his adventures over the years. Years after the events in Mordenkainen's fantastic adventures, this module, he lives in an obsidian citadel located somewhere hidden in the Yaddle Mountains in Greyhawk, and he would form what is known as the Circle of Eight, sometimes referred to as the Council of Eight. 8 members strong, this council was formed to keep a balance between the different alignments. Eventually the circle would fall, 7 members would die under the command of Vecna, with Mordenkainen being the only survivor. But he would eventually find a way to clone the fallen members and re-establish that circle. With the circle back in business, Mordenkainen would take his leave and adventure solo for a long number of years. It is during this period that he took up trying to confront Strahd in Barovia that we spoke about earlier. As mentioned, Strahd was more powerful, and Mordenkainen lost his spellbook, lost his staff, and lost his mind. Unable to escape the clutches of the Ravenloft mists, he took up residence in Mount Baratok. It is here that adventurers would find him and help him to leave Barovia, and help him to restore a bit of his mind. At least enough so that he knew who he was again, though bits of that madness stick with him, even to today in 5th edition. He makes heavy use of a tower in Avernus called the Tower of Erm, which is described as something that jaunts across the multiverse. It is an iron tower that sits atop a lake of boiling blood. There's no windows, and the only door appears to open up onto a high balcony, to a balcony high up. Red lightning crackles between 2 metal points on the roof, and moreover, when Mordenkainen leaves Avernus, he takes that tower with him. And this is the last known bit of information that we have about Mordenkainen up until his Tome of Monsters from the Multiverse. And in that, we don't really learn anything about him himself, other than he has visited vast locations across the multiverse and has chronicled the various monsters that he's encountered. But we do learn that at some point, he and Tasha have become friends, which is perhaps why she is sitting with him trying to help put a stop to Vecna. And I also wonder if, and hear me out, Igwilf is featured in the Lost Caverns of Sajkanth, which is, we know that Igwilf is Tasha, and that adventure is situated in the Yaddle Mountains in Greyhawk. While we don't know exactly where Mordenkainen's obsidian citadel was, and may have been within close proximity to that lost cavern, but perhaps they met at some point. Mordenkainen has certainly had more adventures than what we've listed here, but what we've covered are more notable ones. I, for one, am very curious to see what, if anything, is mentioned about his connections to the other two wizards, Tasha and Illustrial, in the Vegna Eve of Ruin adventure. And I don't exactly buy that it's what Wizard of the Coast is touting as Wizards 3. In fact, that too will be a video I post very soon, the Wizards 3, a full-on deep dive into what they were and what it was really all about. So again, if you don't want to miss it, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, and let me ask you this. What are some notable adventures or lore about Mordenkainen that we didn't touch upon here? Bonus points if you can tell me some connection points between Tasha and Illustrial. Let me know down in the comments, and until next our paths cross, may you avoid those nasty, sweaty socks.